meeting being, there we go. And you should have a little thing pop up on your screen that you agree to the recording. There is closed captioning availability. There should be a button on your menu at the bottom of your screen that allows you to turn on closed captioning if that's something that you need or want. We will keep everyone muted. There's a lot of people in the meeting, just so that everyone can hear. If you have program updates, we will hopefully have a short time at the end of the meeting if anyone would like to give any short program updates. So thank you all for being here today. We have a really packed agenda with a lot of super interesting and relevant information right now. I am going to start us off by reading the coalition's mission statement, and then we will hop right into our agenda. So the Seattle King County Coalition on Homelessness mission: we mobilize our community to challenge systemic causes of homelessness and advocate for housing justice. And with that, I am going to go into our first agenda item this morning, from the Mockingbird Society, Joe Bechtold, if I
That's great. Yeah, totally.
Yay. Okay, great. I said it correctly. Is going to talk to us about a super relevant COVID, what's the word I'm looking for, aid that's available right now for people that used to be in foster care. So Washington Foster Care Pandemic Aid. And she's gonna give us information, what you need to know to help your people you're working with access that benefit before the application process closes. So Joe, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that warm introduction. Hi, folks. My name is Joe Bechtold. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm from the Mockingbird Society. And I'm gonna let Maria Rafik, someone from the Treehouse, go over a little bit more, and Claire Calvert from the YMCA will also be joining us too.
All right, hi everybody. I don't know if this is, okay, you can see me. All right, my name is Maya Rafik. I'm joining you from Treehouse. My pronouns are she, her. I'm just gonna go over very quickly a little bit about the Washington State Foster Care Pandemic Aid Program. I'll go over eligibility requirements really quick because that will make it very easy if you're reaching out with this information or helping someone with the application process. And then I'm going to go over some exciting legislation that we're trying to push through right now to, again, extend the Chafee funds as well. So I'll just start from the beginning. If you have any questions, please feel free. I will definitely put my information in the chat. And I'll definitely be accessible to you if you need to help anyone with the application process as well. So the Pandemic Aid Program, it's federal funding from the Chafee funds that have been approved for the purpose of supporting young adult alumni of foster care to recover and stabilize, especially from the financial hardships that have been caused by the pandemic. So what it is eligible recipients will receive a one-time $1,000 reimbursement. And that can be for the purpose of education, housing, transportation, much more. And just so you know, in case you're speaking with someone, they do not need to verify how they spent the money. They just need to have a statement of intention of how they'll use it. So it's actually very easy. They just need to be able to say, okay, this is what I'm going to use it for, rent or school or whatever. But they will not need to go back and verify that. So it's really for them to So that's, really what the funding is and where it's coming from. For eligibility, so there's three main things. It's a little confusing, but not too much. The eligibility requirements is that the youth be currently between the ages of 23 and 26, so more young adult. They must have been placed in out-of-home foster care for at least 30 days after their 15th birthday. And now they'll need one or two. So those are the first two. The third requirement, it's either or. So either they were a dependent of Washington State, DCYF, or a federally recognized tribe, or they would have been eligible for these funds under the same criteria, but they were placed in foster care in a different state. If they're currently living in Washington State and meet all of the other requirements, they may be eligible as well. So it would be worth applying. I'm going to drop some links in here for you in the chat. The first one will be the eligibility requirements. The second will be access to the application. And then we're going to go over some cool legislation as well. So the application process is very easy. It's quick. It takes about 10 minutes. They really just need to fill in their information, their age, contact information, and where we can reimburse them. If they're found eligible, we just need somewhere to reimburse them. So it's very easy. The deadline is approaching. So the deadline is on September 24th. So as many people as we can get to apply before then, that way they can be eligible even if the Chafee funds are not extended. Hopefully they will be, but if they're not, if there's funding left over, so I say this just to you, but if there is funding left over, there is a possibility of a second round of reimbursements. So it behooves anybody who would be able to receive this funding. It would be really cool if they could apply and get it because there is some funding left over so far. I'm not sure if I should be saying that, but there it is. If it can help someone out, then that's great. And then the last thing we wanted to go over, Joe and I were just kind of talking about this. There's a new bill, or not new, but there's a bill, HR 5167, that is being presented. And I think I put a link for that in the chat as well. So this bill is going to just help young adults. They're looking to extend Chafee funds. So specifically, the key provisions that would be extended through this bill is going to be a moratorium on aging out of foster care. So this is going to be up until September 2022, allowing young adults to re-enter foster care, and then also continued access to increased funding and cash assistance for young adults up until the age of 27 for pandemic aid. So there's an actionable item there. I gave you a link to read the letter, more information on the bill as well. But if you're moved to sign the letter for support of the campaign, so that we can definitely get an extension on that funding. So that's all I had to go over. I'm not sure about timing. If you have any questions, I'm also going to drop my email address into the chat. Joe, did you want to turn it over to Claire or hold space?
That sounds great. Yeah.
All right, so we'll turn it over to Claire. I hope I'm saying your name right, Calvert.
I think we had a couple questions. One was, I think, what form does the payment, is it offered as a debit card if someone needs it as a debit card?
So they've been very flexible in terms of how they've been doing and creative as well about how we've been able to reimburse, but usually it'll be a direct payment into their account. And I know that for some people, if they didn't have access to that, they were able to send them checks as well. So if they don't have access to a bank account, we can send them a check as well. which is why like it's really important. We don't have a lot of up-to-date contact information for youth who've aged out of the programs. 23 to 26, these are very hard individuals to find sometimes because we just don't have contact information once they've aged out of the programs. So that's been really helpful, being able to, you know, send them what they need once we're able to reach them. That's the biggest challenge that we faced with this program.
Great, thank you. Clara, feel free to hop in.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. Thank you so much, Joe, for reaching out and inviting me. I am the director of the Independent Living Program with the YMCA Social Impact Center. The Independent Living Program serves specifically the younger aged folks that meet the same eligibility criteria that was just talked about by Maria. And so that, and the younger age folks are 15 to 23. So we too have a ton of this COVID relief funding available to that younger age group. The eligibility criteria is the same, like I mentioned, that 30 days out of home foster care placement anytime after the age of 15. We can absolutely, if you know a youth that's like, you know, the details are a little fuzzy of when they were in care, but they think they were at some point, we can verify that eligibility. So if anyone thinks they might, maybe, please send their information my way. I will drop my email in the chat towards the end of my spiel here. And it looks a little different. We are not making direct cash payments to these folks. We are instead asking that they come to us with their needs in mind, whether that be rent, late rent, I need a laptop. Those are just like two of the very, very, very many possibilities. And then we directly pay for that service or fee or item, whatever it may be, as opposed to direct cash payments to the youth themselves. For youth that are already engaged in the IL program, it's really easy. IL youth already have access to funding historically every year. It's just much expanded, both financially, which is great, as well as eligible items that we can buy. So youth that are in the AL program already should be fairly familiar with how this process works. It's more or less just having a conversation with their case manager and then coordinating the details with them around, you know, where do you want these things shipped to, that sort of thing. For youth that aren't in the IL program, it's we unfortunately don't have a form application like Treehouse does. I apologize for my dogs. That's why I had to run upstairs. They're out of control. But it's rather just reaching out to me via email is great, and I can verify eligibility with the state pretty quick and easy. So youth that aren't in our program, that's the best way is reaching out to me with names, and I'll double check that eligibility. Then we will have a designated staff person that's working with those youth that aren't in IL already and aren't interested in case manager services. We are hoping, as kind of an aside to this, that we will have some young people out there that are eligible for our program and who might not have previously been interested or even aware that they're eligible for our case management services as well. So anyone that wants both the funding and case management that isn't already receiving that, we will welcome them with open arms to enroll in our program at the same time. But if they're just needing of financial assistance of sorts, they are welcome. They are welcome to just access that funding. I saw a great question here. How many do I feel are eligible but we aren't currently serving? A lot. DCYF has given me numbers in the past that I can't quite remember. We serve about 250 to 300 youth right now. And I think we've been told before that DCYF believes that there's somewhere around 500 to 800 youth just in King County that are eligible for our services that aren't engaging for whatever reason. No, so our funding, I don't think it's the same timeline. Our funding is available until the end from now, end of September 2022. And at this time, there's also no individual price cap to speak. We just are assessing needs on a case-by-case basis, and we'll probably assess 6 months in to see how that spending is going. But we're just taking it on a case-by-case basis right now and assessing needs as they come in. I do have a flyer that DCYF has published about these funds for that little bit younger age population. That Joe has, and perhaps you can email out to this group.
Joe, if you want to email that to me, I can
I'm happy to do
include
that.
it. I'll include it in our after meeting follow-up email that
Great.
everyone will get.
Great.
Yep.
Excellent. And then I'll put my email. That flyer directs folks to Donna LaFrance. We are DCYF Region 4 in King County. So if you remember that, that's how they're broken up on this flyer. So feel free to reach out to Donna. She will ultimately just connect you with me. So I will put my email in the chat here as well.
Great. Thank you all so much. Very, very helpful information. We've put a lot of the links in the chat, and there are also things that we will send out in our post-meeting email. So thank you. We'll move on to our next agenda item. And Claire, it's usually my dog barking in the background, so it actually feels better for it to be someone else's, not my dog.
Happy to help. So is Tony. You know,
yeah.
All the land.
Great. So our next presenter is Alex Barberia from Child Care Resources, and she is going to talk to us today about changes in childcare options for families experiencing homelessness, and also some new funding from ARPA for families that need access to childcare. So Alex, I'll turn it over to you. Thanks.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alex, and for those of you that don't know me, I am a family engagement specialist with the Child Care Subsidy Program at Child Care Resources. We're a case management program that supports families that are experiencing housing instability under McKinney-Vento in King and Pierce County, or families that are less than 6 months into up to 6 months into permanent housing in King or Pierce County. And then we assist them with all things childcare. So whether that is finding childcare, getting connected to childcare, whether they need to figure out payment for childcare, or they have some extra needs like diapers and wipes and other basic needs resources, we are there to support them and assist them with navigating those needs. I am going to, when I'm done presenting, I will put all of my contact information in the chat, and I will put our intake information in the chat, as well as some websites which you can, or some links which you can go to that have information on different programs and a new childcare funding option that has just started here in King County. So I'll quickly kind of go over how families can get connected with us, and then I will talk about some changes that we have had and some new funding options. So we have an intake line and an email that families can reach out to in terms of getting connected to our program. We try to make it a quick turnaround time, a couple of days. However, recently our team is at capacity. We are serving many, many families right now. And so that turnaround time is a little bit slower, not necessarily 1 to 2 days, but more like 3 to 5 days turnaround time and getting families connected to our program and doing an intake. Families are welcome to reach, or other community partners are welcome to reach out to us via our emails and phone numbers. We do try to make it as low barrier as possible in terms of access, but right now, due to capacity on our team, we are going to be directing those referrals to our intake line and to our email. Because team members at this time don't necessarily have the capacity to do like personal intakes during the week. So just be aware of that you're welcome to send families our way via our email and phones, but we are probably going to have to direct them towards our main intake source because we have someone dedicated to doing that right now. In terms of supports that we can offer families right now, we have a wonderful connection with Westside Baby for diapers and wipes for families that are active in our program as well. They are starting to do more items beyond diapers and wipes. So that's strollers and clothing and educational items and things like that for kiddos, hygiene items for families. We also have a partnership with the Allen Family Center in South Seattle that has a resource room, which has all sorts of items for families. You can walk in off the street and get connected to that resource room. And there are food items, there's diapers, wipes, there's hygiene items, all sorts of wonderful things for families. And the Allen Family Center also has other community resource members as well, representatives from Mary's Place and REWA and Mercy Housing as well. We have some wonderful new funding that has just started in King County that we're very, very, very excited about. Our program does have short-term funding in it that we do try to support families with, that is geographically based in different cities in this area. And unfortunately, we are coming to the end of the year, and so a lot of that funding has been depleted. However, King County has created a child care financial assistance program from the COVID relief dollars that have come from the government. It is, if I am remembering correctly, a $7 million program. So it is millions of dollars that is going to go towards child care subsidy. It is really, really exciting. In order to be eligible for the family, you just need to live or work in King County, fall within income guidelines, which I believe is 80% area median income. So for example, if it is a family of 2, you just need to be making at or below $6,033 a month. So pretty large income guidelines, which is really exciting, a little bit different than the state, which has a more strict income guideline. And then your income, work schedule, or access to child care needs to have been negatively impacted by COVID in the last year, which, as we know, is everyone. So eligibility for the program is pretty simple. I'm going to put the link to the chat for access to that program. It is a flat rate that is being paid. So if a family comes in the middle of the month, they won't get approved until the beginning of the next month. That being said, the funding is set to go through the end of June of next year, which is very exciting. So it's a long-term subsidy for families that aren't maybe eligible for the state subsidy or other mainstream subsidies like that. If families are connected to the Homeless Child Care Subsidy Program, which I work for, we actually have the ability to not do a flat rate. So we can start families whenever they like, do a prorated amount and get them connected to that funding immediately. So that is a nice support that we are able to offer. And we are at our program have complete access to all of that funding at King County. So we are able to get as many families as we want onto that program. And there are less requirements in terms of verification documents that are needed, and we can support them in that process, which is really great. We also have some new funding that is going to be coming down the line in the summer. We're hoping in the summer. It'll be starting hopefully in July, which is funding from the BSK, Best Starts for Kids, which just recently passed, which is very, very exciting. There's a huge amount of funding. I don't even know how much it is. That's how much funding it's going to be for childcare. So we're really, really excited about that. That's going to open up a huge amount of childcare funding for families in this area. For those of you that are unaware of our other programs that we offer at Child Care Resources, besides the Homeless Child Care Subsidy Program, there is a new pilot program that is starting this year. It is called the King County Veteran Student Child Care Subsidy. So this is a subsidy that is administered for veteran students in partnership with King County Veterans, Seniors, and Human Services Levy. And that is a partial scholarship for veteran students that are going back to school. Actually, I believe that they just recently were able to start doing active duty members as well. And what's great about this program is it is serving licensed care, but they are also able to support family, friend, and neighbor care providers, which is really exciting because as we know, those FFN, there are not a lot of subsidies out there for family, friend, and neighbor care providers. We also have our child care financial assistance programs, which are located in Redmond, Auburn, Bellevue, Covington, which is a new city, and Kent. So those are child care subsidy programs for families that aren't eligible for the state subsidy. Most families are possibly over income by a couple $100s. There is a lot of funding that has opened up in those programs due to the King County funding program. So I really encourage families to apply to that because oftentimes there is a wait list. And the CCFA programs in Redmond, Kent, Bellevue, Auburn, and Covington are, they don't have a time limit on them. So we've had families that have been on there for many, many years, some up to 10 years. I am trying to think of any other new additions. We're mostly just really excited about this King County funding. We really want to encourage families, if you know families that could be eligible for the Homeless Child Care Subsidy Program, please get them in contact with us because we have a lot of funding that we need to spend and we want to spend it on these families. So I am going to put my contact information in the chat. I'm going to put the website to the Child Care Resources portion of the website that has information on all of these subsidy programs that I just talked about. And then I'm going to put the link to the application for the King County Child Care Financial Assistance Program. There is an online application. And then if families need support with language supports, there is a phone number that they can call and they can help them apply to that as well. One thing I will add, the King County program is not first come, first serve. So we are prioritizing serving families that are the furthest from opportunity and that are the most disproportionately affected. We really want to make sure that this funding is equitably distributed. So families can apply throughout the year, and we are hoping that there will be funding throughout the year. It is not first come, first serve at this time. I saw a question in the chat about getting in contact with someone at Westside Baby. Yes, I can put their information in there in terms of getting in contact with someone who can get set up with you to be a referral partner. They're a really great partner in this community. Are there any other questions? Okay, I'm gonna drop all of this into the chat, and then please don't ever hesitate to reach out to me at any time if you have any questions, if you think that you have a family that might be eligible, but you're just not sure. Do you have any active outward communications to reach families who are eligible? Do you mean in terms of like what our outreach looks like for our program and for the King County program? Okay, yeah, so right now we're doing a huge outreach effort in terms of getting information out about our programs. We are taking a big look at what our outreach has looked like historically and hoping to address any gaps that we have, including families that might not have access to traditional routes like community partners. So that includes families that are possibly in encampments, or families that are in the tiny houses, or families that are doubled up and might not have access to McKinney-Vento liaisons or other housing representatives or other community partners. I do know that the King County program is doing a huge outreach push as well right now and trying to get connected to a lot of different resources. We have a lot of flyers in many different languages. I believe that the King County program, I'm looking at it right now, has it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different languages. We are hoping to get our outreach materials in other languages as well, beyond Spanish and English, up shortly. But yes, we are working very diligently to try and get families access to this information and ensuring that families that don't have regular access to other community partners or liaisons at the schools who might have this information will have access to this. And we're hoping that with this King County program, because it's not first come, first serve, and because there are very specific prioritizations when it comes to how they are accepting family applications, that will elongate the funding for families that might get access to this information further down the line.
I think Dee's question and Alex's answer make me just want to underscore the fact that, of course, if we were not in COVID, Alex would probably have brought a stack of those flyers in different languages to our meeting, and you would all be taking them. And let's be honest, some of them would have sat in a pile on your desk, because that's probably what happens for a lot of us with a lot of our paper. So now we have to find other ways to make sure that we are doing the dissemination and the information sharing. And of all the 70+ folks on this call, we all have access to the internet, which many people who need access to these resources do not. So I think, when we provide you with the links that Alex is describing, that's empowering you to help make sure this dissemination goes well. And any ideas that folks have about where you might want to put a stack of flyers, I think that's a great opportunity to follow up with our friends at Child Care Resources or Mockingbird or the Independent Living Program, whoever you've heard from, and think about how you can work with them to get the information more broadly out.
Yes, thank you. We are also, really relying on our community partners for outreach. So this is why we are here today, to be able to share this information. And really, we know that there are so many families in the community who need supports, and we have so much funding right now, and we want those families to get access to that. But we also know that we have gaps in our outreach, and we have historically had gaps in our outreach. So we really want to ensure that we are reaching those families, and please send them our way.
Great. Thank you so much, Alex. She's dropped some resources into the chat. Again, we will send those out post email so that you have those all resources all in one place in an email too. And that also reminds me of something will give a little bit more information at the end of the meeting. But instead of our regular general membership meeting for October, we are going to be doing our McKinney-Vento 101, helping homeless, unstably housed students with a focus on COVID. So what things are a little bit different in helping homeless students during COVID. So we'll give you a little bit more information at the end, but I think that Alex's presentation reminded me to that fits well with the scheme of childcare and education for the kids that we're all working with. So next on our agenda, Claire Lane from the Anti-Hunger Coalition. I think I got that right. Anti-Hunger and Nutrition Coalition is going to give us some updates, both from the federal level and the state level around basic food. So I will pass it over to Claire to talk about SNAP and basic food.
Hi all. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
I'm traveling and having massive technology issues today, so I'm here on my iPad, thank God. I'm Claire Lane. I'm the director of the Anti-Hunger and Nutrition Coalition. We're a statewide coalition who works on state and federal advocacy. And oh my gosh, between USDA and Congress, there has been so much going on. So I want to give you all an update and 2 asks. So on the local level, I do want to start at that. So with the start of the new school year, I think folks know USDA extended a waiver that allows schools to continue to offer free meals for all students. It's called the Seamless Summer Option. I found out yesterday from OSPI, I think they said that it was like 98.3%, something like that, of our schools are using that Seamless Summer Option. Of the ones that aren't, a handful of them are not doing that because they use the community eligibility provision, which is a longer term option for free meals that I'll talk a little bit more about. So because schools are offering free meals for all students, there's still a need for families to fill out school meal applications, or for those schools that typically in normal times, if we can remember back then, use the community eligibility provision and offer free meals. Schools still really need that household income information from those applications or those CEP schools, that alternative household income form. That data is what allocates state funding for basic ed for K-12 schools. So my big first ask is making sure that you encourage your families to fill out those meal applications and those household income forms. That back to school packet that every parent gets, there is information there. If they can't find it, you go on the district website and find the application or the form. The other reason why it's so critical is kids that actually are enrolled in free or reduced price school meals this year. So they've filled out the application, or they go to one of those community eligibility provision, CEP schools, they will be eligible for pandemic EBT next summer, but they have to be enrolled in the meal program this year. So it's that kind of counterintuitive messaging around, you're getting free meals, but please apply for free meals. So we really encourage you to really keep reminding parents that they really need to fill out that application, both for their school's benefit, but also for next summer for pandemic EBT. On the SNAP side, a whole bunch of stuff is happening in September. So folks may have seen the big national news. USDA, based on the last farm bill, so a bipartisan Congress directed USDA to examine the adequacy of SNAP benefits using the Thrifty Food Plan, which is this obscure method by which USDA calculates food stamp benefits. This administration's USDA did a really careful, really thoughtful, very thorough job within the scope of what they could do administratively, and have recalculated SNAP benefits, still using the Thrifty Food Plan. It made a big splash in national news because it is actually a 24% increase in SNAP benefits. That will kick in October 1st in the new federal fiscal year. But 24% of not very much is still not very much. That average benefit is about $1.50, $1.40 per day per person. So while there was big national news and we got a lot of coverage, when journalists started calling local advocates, we all were like, it's great, and still it's not a ton of money. The other thing that's happening is on October 1st is when that 15% COVID boost to SNAP benefits that Congress approved last spring that 15% boost in benefits ends. So you've got this sort of complicated benefit calculation where benefits are going to go down. There's going to be this tiny boost up. And as a result, there's going to be a big benefit cliff at the end of this month. And clients may have questions about sort of, why am I getting a lot less? What's happening? Organizations that do SNAP outreach, they're working really hard to do messaging to families to explain that this benefit's ending. So that is the big recalculation that's happening in SNAP benefits. At the same time, Congress, as you all have heard, is debating the budget reconciliation package. And this is going to be my second ask. We're asking everyone to contact their Congress members and encourage them to vote for the budget reconciliation package that has passed out of committees. Because what's happening now is each of the committees that have jurisdiction over certain programs, they were given sort of a dollar amount to spend to get to that 3.5 trillion. That's what those committees have been doing. It will all end up around that 3.5 trillion when it comes out of committee. And we want the House to hold the line there. We don't want them to negotiate down in their own chamber before the bill goes over to the Senate. So we want to really encourage Congress members now to keep the provisions that are coming out of committee and vote for the full package of provisions. You guys have probably heard tons of stuff, and you'll maybe hear more about, there's all kinds of money for housing, there's money for Medicaid expansion in the states that haven't done it yet, there's childcare funding, there's making the childcare tax credit permanent. There is a ton of really important anti-poverty and community support initiatives and funding in there. I'm going to talk briefly about what's in there for hunger, but it is this whole really robust package that we know is what we need to, not to, to build back better. We need what's there. And there are concerns about what might happen in the Senate. So we need the House to hold strong. On the hunger side, there's a couple key things that are happening that just got approved and passed out of the House Education and Labor Committee. The first thing is it would make essentially pandemic EBT, it would turn it into summer EBT, which there's been pilots for. It would make that permanent. So that would allow families whose kids qualify for subsidized school meals to get a set amount of money on an EBT card every summer. And then for a couple weeks during the school year, when schools are closed for planned breaks, so it's 3 weeks that would be inclusive of a winter break, a spring break, and some of those scheduled, professional development days and other holidays, families would get 3 weeks of benefits during the school year and then a lump sum for the summer. It would also allow and make permanent pandemic EBT. So in the case when schools are closed for 5 days or more during a pandemic, during wildfires, during an earthquake, during hurricanes, it would make this program that was created for COVID permanent for other sort of disasters that close schools. So that's awesome. And we know from the most recent hunger data that came out from USDA, it's things like this that actually at the net level kept food insecurity rates last year really pretty stable. And then the poverty showed that poverty has increased, the food insecurity hasn't. And so we have the evidence that these kinds of programs really work to mitigate child hunger. The other thing that the budget reconciliation package would do right now is really expand the number of schools that would be eligible to offer the community eligibility provision and offer free meals to all kids for free. There would be some money for healthy food incentive pilots, so money for school meals, so that if schools do any one of a number of sort of extra things for their school meal programs, schools would get an additional per meal reimbursement So it's really designed to improve the quality and appeal of school meals for kids, while also making more kids eligible to get free meals. And then there's also some money specifically for school nutrition programs, because they have just been losing money hand over fist for the last year and a half while they try to feed kids. So in the whole array of really great things for low-income people in budget reconciliation, these are some of the key hunger provisions that we're really looking for. There's another provision in there, a very small one for SNAP, because it's hard to do SNAP policy in budget reconciliation. So one would end the ban, which Washington did years ago, but a few states still have a ban on being eligible for food stamps if you've been convicted of certain felonies. So that's what's happening in budget reconciliation. The need to take action now. Thank you, Allison, for that question. And because I'm having technical problems this morning, I can't put the link in, but Northwest Harvest just sent out an advocacy alert the other day that sort of summarizes a lot of this. You all know who your own Congress members are. I would say contact every member of our Democratic delegation. We know this is going to be a partisan vote, right? We know that Republicans are just flatly opposing the budget reconciliation. So we really need to have the pressure in our state on our Democratic members of the House. I'm going to do one quick thing for coming up at the state level. Our coalition hasn't agreed on our priorities for session, but two things we know. We know that this pandemic has made it really hard for families to access school meal applications. The policy and the process is really stuck in 20th century technology. We know online applications are not a panacea for all, but we also know schools and school districts bury their school meal applications somewhere on their websites. It's hard to find. And those applications are typically a PDF you have to download. So you have to have a printer to print it out. You hand enter it, you hand complete it, you have to turn it into the school, and you have to hope that they do the data entry correctly. We know this has been a problem when we've been dealing with pandemic EBT eligibility. So we're considering proposing an online, statewide, translated school meal application that any family in any school in any district would be able to use. And then depending on what happens with Congress in expanding and changing the formula for community eligibility, we would want to update our state's law that mandates certain very, very high need, high poverty schools to do community eligibility. So those are two of the things we're considering around school meal access.
Great, thank you, Claire. That was all super helpful information. If you have some specific links for the action items that you can send me, we can include those in a post email if folks want to take action. I definitely saw a couple thumbs up when you talked about the idea of doing state, an application, a universal application that all schools could use online to make it easier for families to apply. Oh, go ahead. Did you have something else? Oh, okay. All right. So next, I am next on the agenda. I am going to keep my talking pretty brief because I want to hear from you about DSHS offices and their reopening plan or plan in flux. So a little bit of context, as most of you know, during the pandemic, DSHS offices have been closed for walk-in appointments due to COVID safety. And DSHS has really tried to ramp up their online access and their phone access. And so a couple of months ago, DSHS sent out a letter outlining what they're thinking about when the governor gives the green light for state offices to reopen as we start to hopefully come out of the pandemic. Initially, we thought September was going to be the time that state offices would start to reopen. We've seen, unfortunately, we all know, we've seen COVID numbers getting worse instead of getting better. So that timeline has been pushed. But what DSHS has proposed is to not reopen their offices in the same way that they were open pre-pandemic, and to have very limited in-person assistance within the offices. So the idea would be they would have for most offices, there would be a navigator in the front lobby that could help people access phones and email, or online to do applications, renewals, recertifications, and have, in some offices, no access to sort of on-demand in-person services, and a very limited amount of in-person appointments. And I think those of you that work in this field know that sometimes, for some people, in-person appointments will work. There are also a lot of people that need that on demand. They need to be able to walk into an office and access someone right away, that they're not necessarily going to be able to come back for an appointment, due to a lot of barriers, whether that's transportation, whether that's just generally tracking appointments. So I think myself and along with some direct service providers across the county have been meeting with DSHS to express our concerns about this proposal, and really encouraging DSHS to rethink this proposed model, and that we really do need in-person access, on-demand access once it's safe to reopen offices. So my ask for you today is to think about this for a minute and what this means for you and your clients. And if you could put your thoughts into the chat on what this would potentially mean if DSHS offices didn't reopen and not have walk-in access. And we're going to compile those, potentially with your permission, use that as part of our advocacy with DSHS. And we may need people to make statements or write letters, or give specific examples of how this would affect the folks that you work with in accessing DSHS benefits. So if you have any thoughts, if you could drop those. You can do either one. You can email me, or my thought was that you could just put them straight into the chat, because we save the chat, and I will put those into another document for my reference as we move through our advocacy.
And I'll just I'll just note, if you want to think about it or talk to your colleagues, you could also email Sarah, SARA, at homelessinfo.org afterwards. I will amplify Sarah's point to say, when we first heard about this, as you can imagine, we were horrified. And we have had 2 meetings with a senior DSHS staff person expressing our really very clear sense that this is unacceptable. It is absolutely the opposite of ensuring access for people with disabilities, for people experiencing homelessness, for people with multiple various barriers, as Sarah said. So I want everyone to understand we are pushing back strongly, and the invitation to you right now to share your experiences and thoughts is to help us. The governor has a state poverty reduction and work first task force. We have flagged this issue for them. We have alerted several state lawmakers about this, and we are thinking hard about what strategies we're planning to employ. But no matter what, as Sarah said, those strategies are going to be best effective with your specific examples, experiences, and stories. And so this is not the last time you'll hear from us about this, and we really appreciate your input. And yes, I'm just seeing Michelle's comment. It's been a terrible hardship for people not to be able to access DSHS. And so in addition to saying, their plans for reopening are not good, we're also saying what's currently in place isn't adequate. Right. Okay.
Great, thank you, everyone. And we will keep giving updates. We did hear tentatively that state offices may be able to start reopening the middle of November. We don't know. I mean, I think everything is sort of up in the air right now. Nothing is definitive. But we will continue to keep this group updated as we work through various channels to challenge DSHS to ensure that people have access to staff in the offices for applications and renewals. And I am now going to hand things over to Allison, and she is going to give some staff updates.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. We hear your puppy. And I'm just, Sarah and I are flying solo or flying duo today. In case you haven't noticed, we don't have the wonderful Sasha here. Sasha's on a great backpacking trip. So Sarah, just your reminder, I'm handing over to you, admitting people from the waiting room because folks are still joining. Thank you. I also want to really thank you, Sarah. Sarah has been leading on a number of really important advocacy efforts, including this DSHS advocacy work, and continuing to work very closely with all of you and with staff from Senator Patty Murray's office and Congresswoman Jayapal's office around ongoing issues related to economic impact payments for people without homes. So while we're not talking about that specifically today, those issues are live. We just got an inquiry from our friends at Operation Night Watch yesterday about someone whose EIP hadn't shown up. So Sarah is a wonderful, wonderful, experienced advocate, and I'm really grateful that that we have her and her skill set and experience joining the mighty coalition. And my first staff update is to say with great pleasure that we are adding another wonderful person to the coalition staff team. And we invited her to be our guest today at this meeting because she hasn't officially started. She's taking a much needed, well-earned vacation, but I wanted you all to see and hear that the terrific Jody Rao, previously with the Healthcare for the Homeless Network, is joining the coalition staff team. So we'll just give Jody a minute to wave and say hi.
Thanks. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Sarah. I'm super, super excited and really looking forward to my last, week and a half, 2 weeks here of vacation, but I'm really excited to join and be a part of this organization, be a part of this team. I'm seeing lots of familiar faces and names in the participant and on screen. So cannot wait to reconnect with you all. For those that I don't know you as well or have yet to meet, I look forward to learning about you and your organization and your work and just future collaboration. So thank you for inviting me, and happy to join the team.
Thank you so much, Jody. Wonderful. Well, as you all know, this is an organization that is, it is a membership organization. So our membership meetings are kind of our public place to do a lot of our business. And we're also hoping to, with the addition of Jody and Sarah, find additional opportunities to gather together, even though a lot of that is still going to be remote for the time being. So you'll probably be getting inquiries from us about how we can best serve you and amplify your voices. And I'm going to ask Sarah to put the link for the McKinney-Vento Helping Homeless Students survey in the chat one more time. That's another example. You know, the Helping Homeless Students workshop that the coalition has hosted, I think this will be our 12th year, started because of what used to be the Families with Children Committee, made up of direct service providers like yourselves who work in organizations that serve families with school-age kids. As with many all volunteer aspects of the coalition, we and of many other organizations, we have worked really hard to create a staffing structure to support the good work of direct service providers at our member organizations. So you don't get to just you know, walk away from being an active member of the coalition. We need your input to help inform this workshop. Every year it's a little bit different. Obviously this year with COVID, it will be focused on the aspects of COVID that are particular to our times. But in general, if you or a colleague works with school-age kids experiencing homelessness, whether they're unaccompanied youth or in a family grouping, you want to be at this workshop on October 21st. And we want the workshop to help you and the folks you serve. We also warmly welcome parents and even students who might be able to participate, although we hope that they're in school, because this really is a know your rights kind of workshop, and it's an opportunity to understand what the federal McKinney-Vento Act says, but also to understand that it is largely an unfunded mandate and requires all of us, students, parents, service providers, and school personnel, to be really good problem solvers together. So we'll be sharing information, but also hoping to empower you to do the best advocacy that you can to ensure that kids have a really good, equal experience at school, whether they have a permanent home or not. So that survey is in the link. I also want to mention that thanks to Sarah and Sasha and many of you and the coalition's board and incredibly generous donors, we put round 2 of our Solidarity Fund resources out into the community. We are just so excited about having had the opportunity, because of the generosity of people from across the country, to accept donations to help on the ground people without homes coping with COVID. We just made about 18 grants of between $1,000 and $5,000 to a variety of community organizations, and the aid is going to make possible a lot of really practical and, we hope, joyful and helpful things. We're really excited to share that information with you. There's a blog post that Sarah just put in the chat, so you can read a little bit about it. I think some of the grantees are actually even participating in the call today. And we're going to organize an opportunity in November to, as part of our colonial Thanksgiving giving thanks, to offer everybody an opportunity to hear a little bit from those groups about what they've been able to do with those resources. Two more quick things. One is we won our lawsuit, and Charter Amendment 29, sometimes known as Compassion Seattle, will not be appearing on Seattle ballots this November. I want to acknowledge, as with many things that we work on, that we thought long and hard about the coalition's position with respect to this. Generally speaking, as an organizing principle, we like to put our effort as much as possible into promoting solutions and doing what we know people without homes need, which is advocating for housing, for justice, and for survival services, including shelter, where needed. We don't like to put too much resource into being the voice of no. However, we had such grave concerns about the proposed charter amendment, which many of you know about, which was a proposal to amend the City of Seattle's charter and likely drive policy, no matter who becomes the next mayor, no matter who is elected to city council, in a way that we believed would be fundamentally harmful to people who are living outside, without providing 1 penny of additional funding to actually create the housing or housing-like units that were described in the charter amendment. So we did a lot of homework. We did a lot of talking to many of our partners, members, and stakeholders. There is a range of opinions among the member organizations of this coalition, but the vast majority were expressing serious concerns about the harm that would be done both to real people and in the policy world. And so we took the step of filing as co-plaintiffs with the ACLU of Washington and the Transit Riders Union a very specific legal challenge about why this charter amendment proposal was illegal as written, and why it really undermined state law that requires there to be coordinated local action to plan and to budget to respond to homelessness in our community. As you all know, the Regional Homelessness Authority is just getting going in our community. We are sad that it has taken so long to do that. We have known that we need a regional response for a long time. And we also know that we need a whole lot more resources. Now we're finally at the point where we have a regional entity. And sadly, because of COVID, we actually have many resources, and we need to make the most of those resources. We don't need an unfunded non-plan that undermines regionalism. So we filed the lawsuit on an emergency basis because this was related to an election matter. The King County Superior Court judge agreed with every single one of our points about why this was an illegal proposal. And the opposition, the backers of Charter Amendment 29, initially said that they weren't going to file an appeal, and then they said that they were going to file an appeal. So they filed their appeal, and there was a very decisive response signed by 3 judges of the appeals court saying, no, there is no basis for this appeal. So that is that, except of course, as we know, the work continues. We always knew the work was going to continue, and that's what we're here all about. So I just, I want to really thank the people who have worked so hard on this. We know there've been a lot of community members and coalition member organizations making statements about both why this was not helpful or real, and why they have better suggestions of what we need to do. I want to really thank the attorneys who worked on this and our co-plaintiffs. I want to thank the folks who are part of the House Our Neighbors Coalition, who did tremendous organizing and community education and outreach for months related to this proposal. And I want to say that I think it's also really a good indication of why this coalition exists, because we are able to use all the advocacy tools available, including when necessary, taking legal action. And that's important, but it's also rare. And so much of what we all do every day is really, we try to make incremental progress, and then we try to plan for really big progress. And it feels to me like what we want to end on, I guess the note I want to end on is, this is our moment. There is money in the federal budget, and there are resources allocated in this last year's state legislative budgeting process that allow us to house thousands more people in our community and across Washington state. And that's where we need to put our effort. The last thing is the Charter Amendment 29 campaign raised $1 million from businesses and individuals to run, as I said, something that was unfunded and not really a plan. We believe that they have something like 3/4 of that money left, and we are going to be issuing a public challenge to them to donate those resources to housing, since they and we agree that that is actually the solution for people without homes. And we think that that's an appropriate way to allocate what's remaining in their war chest. We also encourage them to raise a whole lot more money for the solutions that we need, that don't just come according to wishing. So that's that. I'll read your comments in the chat. I thank you all so much for hanging in with that long explication. Maybe I'll just see if there are any questions that people have that they want to put in the chat while I cover one last, I hope, fun opportunity, which is, because our annual fundraising event is our lawn bowling party at the Jefferson Park Lawn Bowling Club. It is outside, and the weather gods permitting, we hope that that will be a COVID appropriate opportunity to gather in person. Bring your masks, because inside where the restrooms are, masks are required, but lawn bowling is fun. You can try it if you've never tried it. You don't have to try it. Because of COVID, we're not serving a lovely meal as we usually have, but we will have drinks and light refreshments, and you're welcome to bring a picnic. And Sarah just put the RSVP form into the chat. Thank you so much, Sarah. All we need, we ask of you, is to RSVP to let us know how many folks are coming. This is an open house on Saturday, September 25th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's a beautiful setting if you've never been there before. Wear flat, soft-soled shoes if you want to bowl, or just be ready to take your shoes off and go barefoot to protect the greens. We are really, really excited to see people and to thank our community in person and just enjoy each other's company. It is a fundraiser, and we invite you to make a donation if you're able to, and you are welcome no matter whether you can or not. And we really hope to see as many of you as possible on Saturday the 25th. Sarah, have I covered everything that I was supposed to cover? I think so.
Yes, you have. And we actually have a little bit of time left in the agenda. Yay! So if there's anyone that would like to give a program update or any update about your organization, please feel free to unmute yourself and give us that update. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, there is one more take action, which maybe I'll just put up there right now. We welcomed people at the very beginning of the meeting to do this, and then someone very kindly followed up. So I just tried to be very upbeat, but now on a more worried note, you all know, we all know, we've been working so hard to prevent evictions, a wave of evictions from happening, and all the good work that is happening, all of the money from the federal and state government to help pay back rent and forward rent, and to set up legal counsel for people who are being served with evictions, is not moving as fast as we would like. I do want to note, I asked someone from King County to please help me understand why it was taking so long to get the emergency rental assistance money out. And I want to say that while all of you as direct service providers are doing extra to respond to a pandemic on top of an emergency within a crisis, so are the folks at King County, and the frustration that they feel is real. The answer that I got in part was that the scale of the rental assistance program that they are standing up matches the scale of the entire county's Medicaid program. And they're standing it up in the matter of a few months. So it's a big project. It's not to excuse the delay, which we know is, causing huge hardships for people, but it's to offer the hope that we can work together to get these resources out and tell the governor that he must extend renter protections through the end of this year. We cannot have done everything we've done only to have evictions proceed at mass scale at the end of this month. So please take a minute to take action with the Housing Alliances link. And I'll shut up now because I see there are great updates coming in the chat.
Yeah, and feel free if someone has a update that they want to share, feel free to unmute yourself and give us an update.
Hi, my name is Shayla. I'm from HopeLink, and I do have an update for our organization. I wanted to let everyone know that our family development program is now taking new clients. We've gotten through our wait list, and we're ready for more families to join. If you work with any families, specifically with children under 18, who might be interested in participating in case management, it's a 2-year program. We meet with families once a week for about an hour and just work on stability goals that family has specifically put forth. Yeah, we are taking clients either, there's a form on our website, hopelink.org, or you can call our intake line, and I can put that in the chat as well. And I'll put my email too in case anyone has any questions.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nadia from the Seattle Public Library with a few updates from our side. We are continuing to open branches and expand services. So 3 new locations opened up this month, Montlake, Wallingford, and Madrona. We're hiring and training folks, and the branches' hours and days are continuing to expand. So I'll drop a link that has the current information there. In building, we do have free computers for folks to connect to, Wi-Fi and charging stations. Printing and copying is free at the moment, up to 10 pages of black and white and three color. Folks can pick up their holds, including 3-week hotspots that folks can check out the same way that you check out books. And of course, bathrooms are available. There's space to be, and people who are really excited to reconnect with folks in our community. Also specific to the Central Library, we do have our 10-minute courtesy phones available. So if there are folks that you're working with who need to make a phone call, then please definitely send them our way. Our meeting rooms are still closed, but we have virtual programs that are taking place, and new resources for youth and family, including tutor.com with free one-on-one virtual tutoring in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. We also have the Your Next Job program, which continues to offer online and phone assistance with unemployment questions and looking for getting connected to people's next step in their career, which is available in 11 languages. And finally, sorry, I know this is a lot of info, I'll drop some notes in. You may be aware that we're looking for a new chief librarian, and there's a survey that's open until 5 o'clock tomorrow, Friday the 17th, where folks are able to share what they think is the most important ability or skill for your next chief librarian. So I'll drop those links in the chat for folks to be able to connect with, and I'll put my email in there as well. So feel free to reach out with any questions.
Thank you so much. On a personal level, I am at the library a couple times a week. So the more it's offering, being open and resources is amazing.
Thank you. We're excited to see you.
It's a wonderful thing. And I want to encourage people to put some comments in the chief librarian search. You know, Nadia and others have been wonderful partners to us. And I think finding a new chief librarian who will deepen those partnerships and recognize that the libraries really are centers for everyone, which I want to say the previous librarian did to a good degree. I think that will help us as we continue to need our librarians more and libraries more than ever.
Great. Any other updates or questions about anything that came up today? Okay.
I'll just clarify one thing about our October 21st membership meeting. We usually give you the link to register for the next meeting at this meeting, but we didn't get around to creating that, so we're sorry. But we will create it. But as you noticed, and as Sarah said, our McKinney-Vento workshop is going to be the majority of that meeting. So here's what we're going to do. 9 to 9:30 is a general membership meeting. We're going to pack in information. 9:30 to 11 is the McKinney-Vento Helping Homeless Students workshop, and you'll be able to register for one or the other or both. As you may recall, pre-COVID, our membership meetings were in person for 2 hours, 9 to 11. So this is back to the old time slot. And then we'll have a membership meeting in November. Obviously, there's budget season happening, a huge amount of advocacy work that will be happening and helping people access the resources that exist, but that are hard to access. And then in December, we will have, believe it or not, we're getting to plan that, our legislative session preview, which is always a great meeting to come to get yourself prepared for advocacy at the state legislative session, which starts in January. And what I want you to just sort of start thinking about, please, is not only how you and your coworkers and neighbors and friends can get involved in advocacy, but what about the folks you serve, the guests, the residents, the clients? What would it look like for them to be prepared and to be able to engage? Who knows whether our legislative session will be in person or remote? Hard to say at this point. So just start thinking about what you might be able to do, and maybe we'll chat with our friends at the public libraries about what kind of remote access we might be able to offer for those who need it if we've got another remote session.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It's great to see all your faces. Bye-bye.